All right, welcome to Mastermind. This is June 17th. Today, hot seats with Daniel and Olga. So Daniel's going to pitch us and talk about his film, and we're going to do some feedback. So got 20 minutes on the clock. Daniel, go for it.
Cool. So, Stacey just mentioned three. So if there's time, I'll share the dark comedy too. So, this one I've been on. It's been on my mind for a while. So it's a horror short. Again, it's titled Likeness, and again, um, I call it it's Pet Cemetery meets AI, like the current technologies with AI generated. So basically, what it is, it's about a father who lost his daughter recently, and basically wife left him, so he's alone. And basically, he happens to find a site like one of those dark web type things, like an Asian site. I love Asian horror, so it has to do with that. And there are a lot of shady things like that out there too. So basically, he finds a site called Incanter. I'm calling it Incanter, like incantation, that basically allows you to bring back the dead through a, an incantation that you paste into a prompt, like use any type of prompt. So here he finds a site called Promptly. I'm just calling it Promptly, where basically the rule is basically you can use this incantation if you follow these directions. You have to create a perfect likeness of the person you're trying to bring back from the dead. In this case, it's his daughter. And once you have that generated, paste in the incantation, like basically comes in as some kind of weird code. And so he just kind of, by the time we start in the film, it's a short film, we already see that he's been trying for a while. And we see hints of his family. It starts off saying, okay, nice family, pictures on the wall. But then we see the last photo, which is like in memoriam, Karis, the daughter's name, Karis. And then he basically takes the first shot of the film is him taking the portrait and just breaking the glass and taking out the photo, just scanning it in and just trying to generate a photo. And he manages to generate what seems to be a perfect likeness of his daughter through the application. And then he pastes in the code. And he's like, this is fine. This is perfect. And it's basically he enters the code, nothing happens, and puts his face in his hands, and then suddenly the screen glitches out. And there's a visual part where the screen turns completely black, but you see a reflection of his daughter like behind him, like in the screen. He turns around, she's not there, but then he starts hearing a record playing in his daughter's room. And we get hints that his daughter's like used to love dancing and all that. And through photos, whatever, he goes to the room and all the lights are off, like all the lights went off after he enters in the code. He sees her dancing in the dark, and he just watches her dancing in the dark for a while, doesn't do anything, doesn't say anything, but at one point like knocks something over, and she just suddenly stops and stares at him, and basically he kneels on the ground and like puts his arm out, and she runs over to him, and she doesn't embrace him at first. She just runs over, and he embraces her, and then we don't see her face, it's in the dark. And then we see like, but then she finally reaches up her hands, like touch his neck, and then something bothers him, like what the fuck. And then he takes her hands and sees they're all like mangled and distorted, and then like basically pushes her away, and the little moonlight there is kind of reveals her face, like kind of distorted. And now then he's like, what the fuck? This is something I recycled from an old idea. She opens her mouth, and instead of teeth, it's all jagged, like fangs and ever. And then basically she's just like, it ends with her devouring him, and cuts to black. So that is Likeness.
Nice. All right. Likeness. Now, this is a short film, Daniel.
It's a short film.
Okay, cool. All right. So, Val, hi, welcome, Val. Happy Monday. Daniel was just pitching one of his shorts. So, yeah, this is where we have 16 more minutes. Let's give some questions to Daniel as if he just pitched this to an executive, or you're in the producer seat. You might fund this or make this come to life. What kind of things do you want to know about likeness? Or what things stood out in his pitch to affirm him?
Yeah, immediately, if I may. for a couple of minutes. This was very clear to me in my head, like what it would look like, what it would feel like, both the tonally and visually. So there's very clear lineage from the first opening scene to the end to really capture the journey, the reason why, to have the motivation, kind of like why the father even is doing this, because yeah, it's just the grief and loss and him willing to sort of fill that void. So emotional connection is very strong. I think that's what really sells, is that there's no confusion of what's going on, why, like this, it's all very clearly set up. And also like the references to those kind of dark webs. I love Asian horror. I love kind of like ghostly and googly Japanese tales and banshees and all of that. It's very strong and really kind of brings the visual too. The jagged teeth, the kind of like the darkness, and especially why you, why now, right? I don't know, like the background might be a little bit more like why you wrote the story. Like I would add that to sell, because that's what usually producers want to, like, what's your connection to this movie? But why now? I mean, it's obvious, because AI, because ChatGPT and all the transformers and everything. So very good time to tell the story. It's something that will definitely be interesting. There are a lot of kind of AI tales out there, but this has a uniqueness to it, just really to show that father's take on how to, again, bring back his daughter. So I think that's unique and beautiful. And also just like, there's no sort of mystery in a way, like how it ends, it all makes sense, but also it has that very beautiful arc of like trying to do something that might not be the right thing to do, but you do it anyway, because you just don't want to be lonely and broken and sad. So yeah, if I were a producer, especially with the money, I would invest in this and want to see this film, because it does have a beautiful story. And for me, it's just like it's already there. It just needs to be made. Good, Daniel.
Cool. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Olga. I mean, I think it was super clear. I totally had visuals just with you describing it. I also agree with what she said about making it personal, like why, maybe a little bit about, why you're telling this story or what it means to you. Maybe even after you, like at the beginning, put a little something of that at the beginning, but then at the end, why it's so important to you, I think would be great, that it's not just a standalone story, that there's a purpose in writing it. But the visuals were great. Not totally my genre to produce, but I think people like Olga get so excited over those kinds of stories. So there's always a great fit. So it's finding those right producers and stuff too. So but you're definitely clear on what you pitching, and I agree, the total AI theme and everything is so, popular right now, and maybe it is a little bit about how AI can devour us too, and something, that take over us kind of. So there could be a lot of meaning behind it, I feel like, so highlighting that would be awesome.
Yeah, I would definitely like to help you make this. It sounds very fun. I like this kind of stuff. I also, you said Pet Cemetery, which is great. So you gave us a comp. And I might have missed it, but I know some people will say it's Pet Cemetery meets, did you say a second one?
AI, just like
Is
current
that
current generation of AI.
is
Like
that a film or no?
no, it's just like kind
Got
of
it.
the trend of like AI
Okay,
stuff. So
got it. Yeah, so that's good. So who was I talking with about this? Maybe it was somebody on a roadmap writers thing, but they were saying it's really good to use one comp instead of two and do it like so for instance, like when I have this film called Mrs. Claus Secret Agent, and they said I should pitch it like, imagine if The Incredibles was set at holiday time starring Mrs. Claus. So I think what you're doing is good. Is like, imagine Pet Cemetery as if it were AI set with a father and a daughter. That's a really great way to describe it. So that's really cool. Good work on that.
thank you. Yeah, yeah. Uh, funny enough, the main theme I had for this isn't about AI being scary. It's about like don't bring back the dead. But it's interesting because again, I like J horror, and J horror does a good job of like commenting on current trends, like whether it's technology or anything, like at least like in the early 2000s, with the internet and everything. They did, Pulse. There's a movie called Pulse talking about like what do we know about the internet, and in the same way, um AI is a new thing. So I was like, okay, what do we know about it? You know, do we actually know everything there is? And you know, again, dark web stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there that's kind of, you know, not unlike this. I'm just like, with the trends of, you know, AI kind of advancing. I'm like, well, yeah, that's not too far off from someone kind of, you know, using this, you know, to try to sell, you know, and you know, to folks who are vulnerable. And plus, I do know folks who have lost, you know, sadly enough, I do know folks who have lost kids, and you know, it's tragic. You know, it's unbelievable, you know, that can happen, and you know, it's just it's sad, and like I can only imagine, like, what would I do in that situation? Would I, you know, how far would I go, you know, to see my loved one again? And you know, that is a running theme, I think. And I referenced Pet Cemetery, and that was, you know, one of the worst experiences I ever had was reading the book version of Pet Cemetery. If you ever want a horrible time, read the book version of Pet Cemetery. Yeah, and that's kind of where I got the idea for the film.
So Daniel, with these, and if everybody else wants to comment, I just want to ask a couple or a question or two. You've got 3 projects, you said, right? So,
Yeah.
and they're all in different stages. Do
Yeah.
you want, in regards to your mastermind, you know, involvement, do you want to take a stab at going, all right, if this likeness is a project you want to develop, you know, and the fact that you just pitched it to us, maybe like, do you want to say like in a month, do you want to have a 1-pager or a treatment, or, you know, something that we can look at to help move forward? Because that would be something you could do. You don't have to, if you're feeling like, you know, the other 2 are more interesting and you still have 8 minutes on your time if you want to play with the other one too. But it would be cool in regards to like the use of our time in this group for you, to make sure we're helping support and encourage and help you keep accountable if this is something you want to see come to light. You know, like we would love, that's just gets us invested too, to see progress in development in it. So think about that. If you want to do anything like that, we're open.
Sure. Well, of the 3, this one and the third one are 2 that I'm like, definitely I'm going to be like, yes, definitely I want to work on. The first one will be a higher budget, so I'm not ready for that yet.
Okay.
This one I think is the one where I know I'm going to have like a set script. The third one, my friend was like, do a Wong Kar-wai film. I'm like, Wong Kar-wai doesn't have a script.
Say that again. Do what?
Do a Wong Kar-wai
What's that?
style movie.
I don't know what that
Wong
is.
Kar-wai is a director from Hong Kong.
Oh, okay.
He's done movies like In the Mood for Love, Chungking Express, and he has a very kind of distinct style.
Mhm.
And so the third one was kind of my friend. He's an actor. He's looking for work. And he's like, I just want to do something. And he's like, you know, you should do a Wong Kar-wai movie. He's like, I know. So that one is something I'm developing with him. So, and this one, likeness is one that I know I want to do a definite scripts, and plus I know someone's bound to do the same thing, like at some point, you know, and it would be great to get it out quickly. So
Yeah, good. Well, does anybody else have anything to say about likeness? Otherwise, why don't you pitch us the other one too? Anyone want to say anything else about likeness?
Just to follow up what everyone else has said, I think it's a unique concept. And then also, I don't know if you're interested in doing a feature, but I immediately thought about the Sloan Fellowships with Film Independent and SF Film have science-based funding. So you're like kind of lucky to be interested in that genre. And then I'll just post in the chat. I looked up the comp pics on Shot Deck for Pet Cemetery, so those might help you for.
nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. Thank you.
And quick side note, Stacy just did a collaboration or initiated a collaboration with Shot Deck for us. So they're becoming a BraveMaker Film Fest partner, and we're giving away some subscriptions this year to some filmmakers. It's very, very cool. Yeah, I'm excited
I
to.
was just going to ask you if they're going to give us a discount code, because I've been debating whether to buy it because I need to do so many decks.
Yeah,
Do
we
you
can
think-
definitely hook that up for you, Kelly. Yes.
Awesome. See, that would be awesome. Good timing.
We'll have more information soon. Okay, Daniel, you want to pitch us your other one? You got 10 more minutes.
Sure, sure. So the other one is I'm calling it a dark comedy workspace revenge film. So the title right now, working title, is Expiration Date. And this story in a nutshell is basically a guy gets, along with his entire team at work, gets laid off. And one night during a drunken night with his coworkers, his manager and the rest of the team, like, just like, we should kill our boss. Yeah, we should kill our CEO. Yeah, yeah, we should just do it. We'll show them for getting rid of us. And then the main character, Forrest, he ends up being the one to like take his manager home in a drunk state and take him to his room, just put him to bed. The whole time he's just like, I'm just going to get them. Someone has to kill the CEO. He's like, yeah, you're drunk. Just go to bed. So he puts him to sleep. Forrest goes home and then he can't sleep that night. It's just like, oh fuck, my life is over. It has just basically, and the most of the movie runs mostly on voiceover narration, just like rambling voiceover narration. So it's like, oh god, I just can't sleep this night. Like, and basically he goes out. He just he can't sleep, so he just wanders the streets and just decides, what, I'm going to kill my boss. Like, I'm just going to do it. You know, and so he basically goes to a pawn shop, and despite the reluctance of the lady who runs the pawn shop giving him a gun, she's like, fine, yeah, here's a gun. And there's a little comedy bit there I want to play too. Like, she's like, how much do they have? $300. He's like, 500 then. But she reluctantly gives him a gun, and then basically he gets a plan in his head. I'm going to follow my boss, and I'm just going to do it. I'm going to kill him. And through the night, he ends up following his boss, like, from bar to bar, and basically he keeps putting off killing his boss. Like, all right, these have ruined my plans, but I'm just going to keep doing it. And he ends up following him to an alleyway, and right when he's about to like do it, he sees like several other guys from the same company, like about to just beat up the boss, just, like, and he's like, shit, what do I do? And so he's just like, decides, what, like, basically get away from him. And he ends up saving his boss's life. And the guys run away, and he's back in this moment. I can kill him now, or what do I do? And he can't bring himself to do it. Just, look, this guy looks more miserable than me. So he ends up taking him to like a bar, coffee shop, another bar, and the boss just ends up like rambling, same thing like his manager, just ends up like rambling into him like the whole night, like, oh, I gotta pick who gets let go, or I feel like I'm feeling I'm killing, ruining people's lives and whatever. And then he's like, Forrest is like, it's not worth it. And so he takes him back to a drunken boss, takes him to his home, and just like puts him to bed. And before he leaves, boss like, you know what? I'm going to help you get your job back. I'm going to help get your entire team their job back. Don't worry. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk to the upper heads. And he's like, cool. And so Forrest ends up sleeping like the best sleep he's had in like days or whatever. It's like, I've slept well that night, knowing that I was going to get my job back. And then, but little did I know, the boss ended up losing his job next day. So and he's like, shit, but well, he basically ends with him like, worse, there could be worse. And so the movie ends up with him like giving the gun back. He leaves, but the movie really ends with that boss who just got let go, coming in and is like, I need a gun, and ending with the lady who runs like, how much do you have? So that's the end.
All right, how about that personal connection? What would you say this one is?
Getting laid off. So I personally got laid off.
And wanting to kill your boss.
I don't know if I went that far. I don't know, so I don't kill myself, but
Don't incriminate yourself. It's being recorded. It's being recorded.
Yeah, no, like seriously, like last year this happened. Like our whole entire team got laid off, and I didn't want to kill my boss. Let's just get that record straight. But I did spend a lot of sleepless nights. Basically every other night I was up that night. I was like, oh my god, my life is over. Like, that's it. My career is done. Like, I seriously thought my career is done. And I had my other coworkers as well. It's just kind of like check up on, just be like, and everyone seems like be taking turns being like, oh my God, my life is over. Even now, like we're still in touch. Like folks are having bad days. And it just feels like everyone I put expiration, it's called expiration date because it feels like when you get to a certain point, you only have a certain grace period until like you're unhirable again. That's the feeling that I get, with like my other friends who got laid off, and just even now I talked to one friend who's still hasn't found work. It feels like we're done. Our career's over. There's nothing left. I've already run my grace period, and I am unhirable. And that is the feeling you get. It's like they look at us. What do we do? We do. Our life is ruined. So it's like that little pocket of time that you just feel kind of that like state of desperation. And again, it's like how far will you go before it goes too far? And are you willing to go that far? Type of situation. So yeah, that's kind of my personal story, personal take on this. So, yeah.
Anybody else want to share? I thought the end too, with a little bit of compassion, sometimes that we forget, we could revenge plan this thing in our mind for somebody. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, Stacy and Olga and I were at an event on Friday or whatever day that was, and we had these people next to us. Before Stacy and Olga came, I was talking to them. There were some weird vibes, but there were these 2 chairs that were in their space, and we were guaranteed 2 chairs per person, and our booth didn't have any chairs. So I was like, oh, these are your chairs right over there. And the guy's like, yeah. It's like, well, is it okay if I use one? And because I don't have it. He's like, no, they're ours. I'm like, oh, okay, okay, that's fine. And I watched them. I took a picture. They sat empty. Nobody sat in them the whole time, but they wouldn't even give one. So I finally found the person who was overseeing it, and they brought 2. But in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna write a blog post about how artists don't share. This is an artist community. I was so mad. And then one of the guys came that I kind of knew. He was kind of weird and quirky, but his son died by suicide. And it just changed my awareness and my compassion and empathy for these people. I had written a whole script on how stingy artists can be, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, long story. That was what made me think about how you gave us a picture of, oh, this guy almost got beat up and then he ended up turning, so that was interesting. I kind of like that little twist.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been talking about the grr part, but the little twist at the end is actually kind of personal as well. I think when I was at Pixar, well, I was leaving that job, and I've been struggling for 8 years to get promoted up, and just never happens. And I had I actually met up with my big boss like right before we left because we're friends. And he was just asking, so why did you decide to leave? And I was like, well, I just felt like I just wasn't getting seen. I just felt like I was getting friend zoned by the company. I just had a horrible time. He's like, I'm sorry, that was me. But he was like, I was the one that decided who could move up or not. I was like, oh shit. And I had this moment like I could punch you in the face right now, but I won't, because your job is. I had this just a moment. Like I know his work is tough. I know it's tough letting folks go and all that. So it's just like it was like a moment of clarity. You know what? It's not worth it. Yeah, it's not worth it to get mad in the end. So that's it's kind of the message of this film that I'm trying to kind of convey. So yeah.
Do you have all 3 of the scripts written?
Oh, say again.
Do you have all 3 scripts written?
No, I literally wrote all 3 outlines this weekend. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're newer. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, we'll watch the progress. Looking forward to your progress.
Thank you guys. These are great notes and everything. So
yeah, so definitely. So yeah, next time let us know when you have something else you want to show, Daniel. But thanks for doing the hot seat today, and well done. If you want to throw, everyone is connected to you on Insta, I'm sure, but just throw it in there just in case, or your email if anybody else wants to follow up and do any notes or be a part of stuff. Maybe we'll find a way to make this happen over the course of the next year. I'm definitely interested, Daniel. So.
cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks. All right. I got to run to my next meeting.
See you. Yeah.
So
Perfect
much.
timing.
Appreciate
You got it. All right, Olga, you're up.
All right, everyone. A quick round of disclaimers. I have something to share. It will be an outline of 3 pages because time is valuable. I want to not take too long of it, but in terms of disclaimers, this is a feature that I won't be pitching per se. I will not have comms in the beginning. I'll save them for the end. And also, sorry, and also there will be some moments where we might pause and discuss and just bounce off ideas because I want it to be interactive and just to hear your guys' perspectives and your feedback and maybe questions throughout. And then in the end, also have a few questions for all of you. And I'm happy to send a Google form or just an email or social media, whichever works best. But this is something that might be the most effective way instead of just reading from the page or going through everything line by line. And lastly, but not the least important, is probably the most important, this film is also dealing with heavy subject matter. And of course, in this sense, it's a matter of mental health, specifically suicide. This is not something that happens in all my scripts, but so far it's the prevalent theme and it's really spreading across multiple works. And it probably has to do with a personal connection. I did have a suicide in the family when I was a teenager. Although it was not a direct correlation, I think it has to do with subconscious responses and healing and processing all of that information. That's why it takes a while to really get it out of the system. And it's recurrent theme. So if there's anything sensitive or maybe something you don't want to hear, please feel free to not listen to it. But I would love to connect with you afterwards if that's easier. But yeah, that's kind of the main call out I wanted to make, is that it's not going to be for everyone. There will be not much of a encouragement or hopeful message. This film is more about response reaction. What do you do when this happens to the people you love or in your family or someone you really care about, and how you're able to move on if it's ever possible, and what is actually a coping mechanism, and how can you find support, and do you ever really find closure? So that's the theme of the film. There are 2 main stories. One is really what you do when this happens, and the storyline B is more about how your life can change completely on the head when this happens, or even before, like how can you completely change your life for something you truly believe in, and then when this happens, like what do you do with this, even though you've taken all the steps that you could possibly have to make it here. With this, I present to you You're a Good Gemini. That's the title of the film. I know Stacy and I just talked about her being a Gemini. I found out there are a lot of Geminis in my network recently. Just everyone that I meet is pretty much Gemini. My ex of late was also Gemini. He still is. Luckily, that's also important to call out. He's alive and well, and all of this is kind of inspired by conversations and events that were happening between us. So this is not a bio. This is not a personal reflection, but it's really as if, because I'm a big as if person, I always ask this question: what if this happened? What if things didn't work out the way they did, but something else took a turn? So the title is You're a Good Gemini, and the logline is: an introspective artist has to live with guilt and find courage to paint again after her conflicted partner takes his own life. That's a preview. And here is the outline. So just to make it easier, don't want to read everything, and it's not needed. We can always discuss offline. But basically what's happening is that we do have a few main characters. It's a really a feature, but there will be 2 main characters and 2 supporting actors. Friends of Hell, who is Helena. She's in her 30s. I describe her as a rock goddess trapped in corporate tech. So she wanted to be a rock star, but she has to make a living.
Oh my gosh, I love that description.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, so just a voice is there. And then there's Mark, who's in Germany, and they meet online. They never went on a date inside. They just make a connection online, and somehow it all develops into a long-distance relationship. Who is a entrepreneur and has a startup that they connect on about. And Hel has 2 friends in the office, but in life as well. There's Nisha. She's Indian, fierce, very open, very go-getter. She knows all the dating culture, all the dating apps out there, goes on dates every single lunch hour, and then she wants Hel to do the same. And then there's Mateo, who is a Latino man, queer, very bright, cheerful, happy, sparkly, and he is also kind of a perfect sidekick and good friend to Hel, who encourages her to be more open and to have some fun and not just debugging coding issues with engineers. So the 2 stories we discussed, And it's a feature. There will be 3 acts. Of course, each one of them has multiple plot points. In Act 1, we start with the ordinary world, what's going on with Hel, and we really show 3 aspects of her life. There's a kind of work, play, and her home. So the film opens with a beautiful shot of sunny afternoon in Benicia. There are a lot of art shops and vintage fairs in the downtown. So it's sunny, beautiful, and she's at a gift shop that has crystals and candles and all of the spiritual attributes and art. And it's all very pastel colored and sunny. And she's like an all black with heavy makeup, with piercings all over. So really just to establish what it looks like. But she enjoys art. She enjoys all these beautiful artifacts there. And then we transition right from there, from the shop of sun and light, into a corporate environment where she's at work. So it's still a sunny day, just like that, but instead of Benicia, it's San Francisco, downtown, a lot of glass, metal, tall buildings, and all of the angular fixtures there. Hel is in the office, she's leading a conference, and then she kicks ass because that's what she does. But we kind of see the contradiction between her want to be and have to be lives. And then we transition into her home at night, which is pretty much empty. She lives alone. She is quite lonely, but not really upset about it. There's nothing much. There's one plant that is almost dying, but she keeps it alive somehow. Empty kitchen and just her work and her art that we know about later. And then, of course, in the end of Act 1, there's inciting incident. What happens? She goes to a conference that is about mental health and avoiding burnout in corporate environments, where there's someone who texts her here. Someone who texts her basically says, "Oh, I see you're here. Yeah, your profile is interesting. Let's connect." And this is how it all kicks off. She never wanted to be really in a relationship at this point. She doesn't need someone. She's open, but she doesn't really want anyone. She's like, I don't have time anyway. But this is what happens where she starts to question, what if I actually allow this to happen in my life, and then find time and find purpose. And in the end of Act 1, we transition into Act 2. And before we do that, any immediate questions or comments on this quickly, just to kind of how it opens and then how it goes into this inciting incident?
I was just wondering that GOO, what does that stand for?
Oh, yes. Thanks, Kelly. That's something I should.
I love how you're laying this out. Like, it's cool to, because it's not a screenwriter myself. It's cool to see like how your thought process, but GOO.
Yes. So that's super important. I've attended a bunch of classes last year, like the whole year. And this was by Heidi Hornberger, who has her own publishing company. She's a screenwriter, producer, director. And this is her approach to structure screenplay. And it stands for GOO is goal, obstacle, and objective. For each scene in each act to be successful, you always have to have a goal that what the character wants to achieve. And then there's obstacle in their way. So what prevents them from doing that? And actually it's outcome. So goal, obstacle, outcome. So they want something, something's in their way, and what happens as a result of that in each single scene.
Great.
Yep. Yeah. And Act 2 begins with kind of point of no return. This is standard save the cat terminology, but also works in this go structure. So what happens is that once they connect online, it was all, let's say, LinkedIn, they get to know each other. And she's also like, why are you texting me? Like, I don't have time for this, go away. And, this is silly anyway, because I'm not looking for anyone. And Nisha, of course, encourages her to be open, like, hey, maybe that's it. Maybe you don't go to dating sites. Maybe you don't meet people in real life, but this is how you do it, actually. And so Hel begins to open up, and they know more about each other. And they both start watching some astrology and tarot readings. And because he's a Gemini, this person, Mark, there's always a phrase that one of the tarot readers says to him, like, you're good, Gemini, you're good. Just keep going, you're good. Hence the title. And so Hel is not into astrology. She has no idea about any of this. So she starts learning about the topic and she gets interested in it. That's something that she's never done before. And her life changes because of that. So she also starts to question things that she's never been interested in before. They learn more about each other, about their past, about their lives. And she says, anyway, like, this is not going to work because long distance, who needs this? There's enough drama in life. But he convinces her that it actually can be a good idea. It's all about communication. It's all about being open and just find out, if something doesn't work out for other people, doesn't mean it won't work out for us. So they do this, they meet occasionally, and of course, things come up, not only with communication, but also long distance pressure. And he has problems with his startup and his company, and she's overwhelmed and burnout at work. So that's really difficult as a layering up technique. But Mark also jokes that, you know, if he ever leaves this world, it will be on his own terms. He says, I don't want to die of a disease or some complications or accident. Like if I ever go, this will be how, because I'm the owner of my life. But it never really sounds serious. So she also assumes this is something that he's convinced about. And she also opens up about her previous relationship, why she doesn't want to date anymore is because her previous partner died, still being very young, he had a terminal disease, and now she still cannot process that incident. So what she does is paint. She's never been trained as a painter. She works in tech, but her outlet is painting. So she has a lot of supplies in her home. When she comes home, she also opens up the canvas and starts just sketching ideas and emotions and thoughts. And he is impressed by that, saying that's a great way to deal with it. So they share a lot of their very deep and raw emotions by all of this. And what eventually happens, they go to Golden Bridge on a walk, and Mark jokes that, oh, look how much security there is on this bridge. Like no one would ever be able to jump from here because it's just so guarded. So she again takes it as a joke because of course it's not possible. But in the lowest moment of the film, which is after the midpoint shift, they go for another walk in Auckland, which is not as heavily guarded as Golden Gate Bridge. It's a bay bridge, and there are open parts where people can go fishing and go for walks and go for play. And after some serious conflict they had, and also again work pressure and long distance pressures, they walk without any sort of heads up. Mark jumps off that bridge, of the bay bridge. And because Hal cannot swim, and it would not help him anyway, and she's also terrified of water because of her incident when she was a teenager, she almost drowned. She's frozen. She cannot speak, she cannot move, she's completely paralyzed, she doesn't know what to do, until their two fishermen come to her and say, hey, we need to call 911 right now, like let's do something. So they do that. The helicopter comes, they pull out Mark out of water, but of course it's too late, and the ambulance says he died on impact. There would be nothing to do to save him. And this is where we end Act 2. This is kind of like all is lost, darkest of the night. And yeah, and so Act 3 really is all about aftermath of that incident. So Hel is completely devastated. She says to herself and to her friends, like, I knew this was not going, like, this is not even something that should ever have happened. I was better off on my own, and now I really love him, and he's gone, and what is this now? So then we cut 20 years later. She's much older. She's now in a wheelchair, and we don't know why until the end of the film, where she's now an owner of that same gift shop that we opened the film with. So she was in the opening scene and she's in the closing scene. She's the owner of that gift shop. She sells her own art, and she also sells accessories and crystals and candles and all of this beautiful, also light and pastel colored place. And one of the customers, a kid, asks her, what happened? Why are you in a wheelchair? And so we have a flashback of her saving another kid from a speeding car, where she just jumped in front of a car, pulled out the kid, and she saved his life, and now she got injured to be forever in a wheelchair. And so the whole message of this is that she always wanted to find closure, find meaning, and be useful. For her, it was the feeling of guilt for losing Mark, for losing her previous partner, that she had to compensate somehow and to bring good to this world. So that's why she spent the remainder of her life making art, helping people, really being there, so that the people she really loved and cared about did not die in vain. It was her way to pay off the universe and to bring something positive. And in the end, when Kid says, oh, this, that's really brave, I'm glad that you did that. Imagine the kid he now has a life. And she started thinking, well, maybe that's really why it happened. And then, yeah, and then she sees a picture of Mark that is among her pictures in the shop, and it has a sticker, not for sale. And she looks at his picture, she smiles, and we cut to black. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. Awesome. Okay. I don't know if you want to pull it back up for any comments or notes, but yeah, I do like seeing the process too. It was cool to see quite an in-depth outline, which is really helpful, So I think even people watching this on the replay because there's so many different ways to write a film, right? Screenwriting, there's no one way. So I think that's a really helpful tool. You know, you're putting that goal and obstacle and objective, really, really helpful. I think the title is catchy, makes me want to know, like, okay, what's that about? You know, you're good, Gemini. That's kind of a catchy thing. One thing I was thinking about, because you kept saying her name, is it Helena, her full name?
Helena, but she goes by Hell, like the
Which I
small
think
L.
is interesting. Hell, which I
Mhm.
know, you know, in one term, people hear that and go, hell, like, oh, like life is hell. That's an interesting kind of juxtaposition that kind of felt like uncomfortable in a way, but I think that's kind of what you maybe want. You're going for that, you know?
Mhm.
So I definitely felt that, like, oh, okay. I was wondering, okay, so did she lose her former partner to suicide as well?
She does not know that. He was
She doesn't.
terminally
Okay.
ill. He was on medication, so he would die eventually.
Yeah.
But she suspects that she overdosed because he also didn't want to wait for that to happen, because there's a scene where she opens her kitchen cupboard and it's
Mhm.
full of prescription meds and bottles and all of that with his name on it. His name is Nick. And then she still thinks about it. Like, did he do it? Or
Yeah.
actually,
So it's kind of mysterious. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, in one respect, I thought it's a lot to put on a character, but that is true to life. Like some of us have been piled on. You know, I know people who've lost a partner and a parent in the same year, and that is just awful. And you know, so there is a lot of reality there that I think you're mining into, which I think is interesting. And I'm very much drawn to how we can help people talk about life after death, especially life after tragic death. You know, so that's an interesting thing. I'm gonna think I have some questions around, you know, end of Act 2 and Act 3 that I want to pose to you, but that's kind of the first comments I want to say. Is just I see all that work and the layering that you're doing. It's interesting. Anyone else have any comments or questions?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I wanted to know also about Gemini, like the explanation of the title, as
Mhm.
Tony mentioned. Do you have an explanation?
Yes. So in addition to them watching those tarot readings and horoscopes about Gemini, where one of the readers always says, "Oh, you're good, Gemini, you're good. Like, keep doing what you're doing," you know. So that's kind of like a quote from a reader. But also Mark explains to Hal that he sometimes has mood swings where he has like different perspectives on something. Oh, that's because like there are two people living inside of me. Gemini is a twin. He says to her, that's why, you know, I'm sorry if sometimes I react strongly, or maybe I say one thing and then do something else. That's because, you know, Gemini's he jokes about it. But she accepts that. She's like, well, that's you. That's really, you should never change for someone else. Like, if that's you, then you should just be you. And that's what she loved him for. But yeah, that's kind of like his personal explanation. And then also it gets doubled down by external source saying, oh, you're good, Gemini. You're totally fine. Which in the end, he's not. But...
I have one. Um, I love the title, and I loved that you said the two people living inside. And I have twins that are Gemini, but so I learn about that sometimes, you know, more than I would have otherwise. But when Mark jumped, I literally like went, "Oh my God!" Like it got me, right? It got me. That was, I don't know why it was stunning, but that was, I was like, wow, like I don't know why I didn't see that coming. And what's funny is Hell didn't see it coming either. Like nobody sees this coming. And Mark was giving clues all along. Like this is never something that people just drop lightly.
Right.
Even though we dismiss it as light. It's never something. And so I'd suffered from postpartum depression, and at one point my fear of flying went away. And I had said to my husband, like one time, I said, "Oh boy, if the plane went down, like, wouldn't that be great?" Something, I don't remember what it was, but he caught it. He knew exactly. Like, it's very moving, this script, very moving. So anyway, thanks for writing it.
Well, thank you for because this is really what I was hoping for, is that that's so true. Like, I completely relate to this. You never see it coming. Everyone is happy and smiling and they're joking about things, and we should never, if there's any clue, any sort of different interpretation, like, we should really ask. and just see and observe and not be intrusive, but really observe because it's so sensitive. Some people don't feel like they can share, or they just joke about it, but we all know that jokers are usually the saddest people out there, or someone who smiles a lot. It's usually not happy.
Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I think creating some of the vehicles that you are and Tony has, I know, are great conversation starters that I think not only will help people left behind, but also people that are contemplating it themselves. If they can talk about it, I think you won't know, you know, if for my world, you won't know this side of heaven how many people you may have saved, you know, by having a vehicle to start those conversations, you know. So those are amazing. You're super creative and thought out in your details, which I'm always impressed by listening to you and your projects. And it was great for me because I haven't done a lot of screenwriting classes, but as a producer, I read so many screenplays that it's and I've always known so much work goes into them, but I want to get better at being able to recognize good screenplays, ones that need improvement earlier in the process, so I don't go down a path to start producing something that's like, oh wait, there's these flaws in it. So I love the education of being able to hear this with you, you know. But great. And is it written or is it outlined only?
It's like 25%. That's the one I have a goal to finish by end of August after the festival,
Okay.
because it's going to be a wild month. But yeah, it's I did finish the short, and this is about 25% ready. So I need to really chop and, you know.
You're great. I mean, I'm excited to watch this progress for sure.
Thank you,
Thanks
Kelly. And
for
if you ever
sharing.
want to chat about structure, story structure, because there's a lot to share. I have some templates and some websites that have that, like how to create an outline, how to break it down by acts, by different
Yeah,
sequences.
I'd love to.
Okay, we'll send it your
I'd
way.
love to. And
Yeah.
to be able to write better coverage, I think I need to take more screenwriting classes and stuff like that too, you know. Awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Olga, we have a bunch of resources in our screenwriting class too, like the Save the Cat and the 8 sequences. And it's always good to have like another, you know, whatever you said, you mentioned the published author. I would love to reference her too in the future, because I think everybody connects with a different way to write, you know. So being able to have, you know, here's Blake Snyder's, here's so and so's, like that could be helpful. Okay, so let me ask some questions. I'm wondering about, maybe you want to pull up your outline. I'm wondering about okay, so after Hell in the at the end of Act 2 kind of confronts, you know, the death and what she couldn't do and how she was helpless, right? We see her, what, Act 3. She's in therapy, which I loved. I thought, by the way, I wanted to compliment that piece too, is that we see somebody in therapy, right? It says she's Hell is assured by her therapist and friends, it's not her fault. So that's, I think, an interesting part of this too. That's something I wanted to bring, you know, to the table in my film, is that we need people to process with, talk about that with. Great. Let's see. The 20 years later. So where does that, so you had page numbers at one point. So by page 110, you say Hell wants to move on and almost accepts the outcome, but she often sees Mark in mirror reflections, puddles of rain, She resolves to paint and live a hermit's life. So page number wise, from 90 to 1, that's a lot of pages. And then what page would you say is the 20-year later kind of flash forward? And how much time is that, like, because it sounds like maybe it's only even like 1 page, 2 pages kind of thing. I would love maybe you like just to explore a little bit of what the story looks like in those last 20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So for this last, like between 90 and 110, could be like between 90 and 105. It's really, I don't want to do too many flashbacks because that's also not a good selling point. So it could be just a montage. It could be like, you know, smaller time increments. So not the whole 20 years, but just like showing her in the present time. So she does not go back to office. So she quits immediately. She does not take any leave. She's like, okay, I'm done with all of this. So then we show her painting. She has to make herself paint because for her it's another blocker, but she knows that that's also therapy. And then we show her in therapist's office, we show her going out, you know, doing things, and even like working with kids, volunteering at nonprofits, and like doing good stuff. And when therapists are like, why are you doing this? Like, well, because I have to do something, because like, what is my life living for? So we show all of this, like that's all going on. But the 20 years later would really happen like towards the closing. So around like page 115, almost up to 120, is that she's at her shop, she's older, she's like all gray hair in a wheelchair. And then the conversation with the kid is really kind of the closing image, is that she goes through the shop, and then when he asks her like what happened, she's like, I saved someone else. That could be like a small flashback, like to show that specific moment. But yeah, that's really closing point, maybe like 3 to 5 pages, but between 90 and 105, it's her life after.
Okay.
What if, sorry, go.
I was gonna say, I wonder if that might be too abrupt, where it's just kind of like, all right, the last 5 minutes we see her in a wheelchair and we find out through a flashback that she saved somebody. I wonder if you can take that flashback out and somehow put it in and sustain that as a flow of the story, that she's able to do that. And maybe it doesn't have to be 20 years in the future in some way, right? I also wonder too, with the Mark, seeing the Mark flashbacks, and maybe I missed it, but doesn't she start painting a little bit more in Act 2 as well? Is she doing more painting? Because I wonder if connecting with Mark actually helps her in Act 2, coming to life a little bit as she's growing in love with him, that she does put a little more time and effort into her art. So it doesn't feel like at the very like last 10 minutes of the film that she's all of a sudden doing all this art and she's living the life, but maybe she starts to trickle into that a little more with the relationship that she had, because it was like a natural outcome of feeling free and feeling loved and being in a relationship. So I think you might want to play around with those last 5 minutes, so it doesn't feel like, oh, we're flash forward 20 years and she's living the hermit life and she saved a kid and we find out through a flashback. It might just feel a little bit too polished or too perfect, like the package was wrapped up too neatly in a way. Just a thought.
Yeah, no, that it's not in the outline, but actually what happened, she stops painting as much because she was painting really after her previous partner died. So for her, it was a way to process the situation, to get her own therapy. And what happened also, she was a smoker. She was smoking a lot, like it's all in a script, like she leaves her office and she smokes, and then she collects the ash and she brings it back home. Like she has a glass ashtray, portable ashtray. She brings it back home and she smashes it into the canvas. So it was a mixed media painting, so that because Nick also smoked, her partner. So for her, it was connection to him. Like she never smoked before, but when he died, she started smoking and then using ash in her painting to really make a connection with him. But when she met Mark, she also completed that painting that she was working on for so long after Nick's death with the ash. And then she stopped smoking immediately. And her friends say, well, hey, that's another good sign. You stop smoking, like you quit smoking. You should have done it a long time ago. And so for her, it's like, okay, well, Mark maybe is the person who can actually bring me out of this hole, both the mental like depression and smoking. So for her, he was like the ray of light. But then when he jumped, she was like, well, my only ray of light in life ever is gone. And I could not save him and I could not do anything. So she again said smoking and painting, and all of that happens like right after. So that's also how she has so many paintings to the flash forward, because she painted a lot after Mark's death.
So this is also reckoning or relating to that true story of the suicide survivor of the Golden Gate Bridge, which is being turned into a movie that Nadine Gracker is a part of. But if the Bay Bridge has this similar potential, maybe you work it in where maybe she goes back to the Bay Bridge on a regular basis. Maybe she leaves artwork on the Bay Bridge. Maybe she does something in Mark's honor. Maybe she creates a net like is happening at the Golden Gate Bridge, so that if people do jump, maybe she sees someone there and she's able to help and prevent somebody else at some point from jumping. I don't know, just a thought, throwing some ideas out there, that
maybe the art stops somebody else from jumping because they see the art there or something like that.
No,
that's a cool idea, Tony.
I love this post.
The other thing I thought with the 20 years later when she's in a wheelchair, if you wanted to use that and everything, you could open with part of that scene without revealing why, revealing, and then the whole thing is a flashback, but she opens in an older and in a wheelchair. And so throughout you're kind of thinking, okay, did she get hurt in the accident with Mark, or did she you see her on the bridge and you're wondering, is she the one that jumps and then doesn't
Mhm.
kill herself? You know what I mean? Like you're wondering if that's how all of that happened, to where the wheelchair's not such this like, oh, she's moved on with her life and now she's in a wheelchair kind of thing. You're like trying to figure it out a little bit throughout. I don't know. Sometimes I like that, where you start with the older person and you try to figure out how they got to that point, and then it
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense at the end.
we don't show wheelchair at all at first. We just see her older, like she's with gray hair and now she's talking to customers, but we don't know
But I
like
think showing that she's in a wheelchair, because then you'll be wondering throughout why a little bit,
like in the
because
very
maybe she did, maybe like you're thinking as the watcher viewer that maybe she did jump over to try to help him, and that's why
beginning.
she's in a wheelchair, and then that doesn't happen, so then you're like, oh, okay, well, what happened? You know, I mean,
Yes.
it's kind of keeps you engaged on trying to figure out why. I don't know what other people think of that, but
Yeah, I do
That's
like some of that opening, you know, of the forward, flash forward, and then going back. That is interesting to me. I know sometimes people are saying it is becoming more like of a tropey thing to do, but I think it can work.
Yeah, right. It's
Yeah, I agree. We're doing it in our feature, and I'm like, yeah, is it too tropey? You know, but yeah, sometimes it just fits.
Yeah. This is so interesting. Like you both mentioned that, like opening was that because in the beginning, like first version, I actually had older Hell, like, and she go by Helena when she's old. Also, that's why because Hell people are called Hell. So, but we realized they're the same people. Helena and Hell are the same person. But it was like she's older, she's in the shop. We don't show the wheelchair, but she was older, and then we transition to the younger her, and like everything happens. But I'm like in my screenwriting classes, they're always saying you should open with your protagonist. Ideally, like however they are right now, like that's what people should see in the beginning, unless it's like their child or whatever. So I was thinking maybe I just keep her in the present moment and then do like a linear progression. But that could also be an interest because she's the same person essentially. Like if that makes more sense in terms of like the end caps, kind of like the beginning and the end. I like that. Maybe, you know, if you guys
Yeah.
think that's
I always like a strong opening and closing image that if you took them out from the script and put them together, it would be like a cool bookend, you know, like opening, closing. So that's always kind of fun. We talk a lot about that in our screenwriting classes with BraveMaker. Is what's your opening and closing image, and how do they tell the story of the arc of the character? Yeah.
More to work about.
Congrats, Olga. That's great. You're good, Gemini.
Great
Debuted
job.
here.
A
Yeah.
lot of work, obviously.
Thanks a lot. I love this session. This is really everyone should join Mastermind.
I
Like,
know, right? Spread the word, which goes to
Yeah.
show next week we have Tristan talking about booking acting jobs. So I wanted to invite you all, because I know some of you have people in your life who are actors, that you can extend a free mastermind class next week. You can bring someone to Zoom who's an actor who would benefit from. So I know Val, your son's an actor, but anybody else that you know, maybe Darlene, Kelly, so they can get a feel of what this is. And you just share the link that you use with them and say it's good for one use for free. And we're talking about auditioning and acting with Tristan Schuler. That'll be a way we can, you know, maybe expand the group a little bit and get people excited. So if you're watching on the replay, like Roselle and anybody else who couldn't meet Shauna, just know you can use this as an extension to invite actors for June 24th, 2024, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Okay. Cool.
yeah.
And if you're watching on Zoom, we miss you. Come on.
Yeah, come. We're making stuff. We're moving things forward. Cool. Anybody else have anything before we leave?
You have a quick
Nope.
press
Okay,
connect,
cool.
Stacy and Tony.
Yes, I'll stay around. Yes, yes.